Welcome to Storytime. Today I've got a few of my favorite books that I want to read passages from as we continue to work our way through my library of dog-related book content. So this one, For the Love of Dog by Pilley, Bianchi and Calum, Heath. Now, Pilley Bianchi is a dear friend of mine. She is the daughter of Dr. John Pilley, who was the guardian of Chaser the Border Collie, the smartest dog in the world. Chaser knew thousands of words. She had proven syntax. And that's her right there. She's brilliant, and she's a huge inspiration for us. So let's get into it. We're going to read The Timeline of Humans and Dogs. And after we do that, we'll look at some of these illustrations because the illustrations are phenomenal. It's like a graphic novel that's massive and fascinating and educational and like heartbreaking in the best possible way. All right. Timeline of Humans and Dogs. 7 million years ago, our oldest Homo sapien ancestors. Oh, I can't pronounce this word, but I will try. Sahelanthropus chadinensis began the evolutionary path to humankind and coexisted with an ancient fox, Vulpes rifaunte. These two didn't compete for food. We ate veggies, the foxes ate meat. We simply shared the space cooperatively and did not commingle. 500,000 years ago, the Homo genus, from the Latin homo, man, learned to live with the Canis genus, who were the ancestors of the wolf, Homo heidelbergensis, and Canis arnensis mosbacensis. Sounds like I am a wizard. Love that for me. 130,000 years ago, this was the turning point that led from wolf to dog. In the south of France, the Lazareth, a group of wolves suddenly began to change in appearance and behavior. Bonjour to the budding metamorphosis of wolf to Canis familiaris, dogs as we know them. Until recently, science believed that our beloved dogs didn't appear until 15,000 years ago. But with the fast-growing field of paleontology, the dates and bonds push further and deeper into our mutual past. This is when the rubber hit the road, introducing the first appearance of interspecies teamwork, marking the fledgling coexistence between Neanderthals and wolves. Up until this point, their wild and independent lives consisted of pursuits, escapes, captures, and food fests. Future humans and wolves discovered that cooperating made both of their lives easier. The spears of our Stone Age ancestors could go where the wolves could not, like up in trees or greater distances that required speed. And prey that was hit but not fatally injured by the spear was able to be captured by the stealthy canine. 36,000 years ago, fossils belonging to a Stone Age dog were discovered in the Belgian Goyer caves. The bones were dated to be more than a whopping 36,000 years old. Scientists discovered that the skull was smaller with a broader snout and wider cranium than those of both the ancient and modern-day wolves. 32,000 years ago, in the Czech Republic at Předmostí, the remains of 3 Stone Age dogs were discovered, dated to be 32,000 years old. But these weren't simply decayed dog bones. There was evidence that these pups were touched by human hands. In their skulls was a purposefully poked hole to carefully remove the brain. This wasn't a delicacy for human consumption. This was a ritualistic act performed by the indigenous people who believed that the head contained the spirit or soul. The hole was made so that the spirit might be released to the heavens. Notably, one of the dogs had her jaw wrapped around a mammoth bone, which had been meticulously placed in her mouth after her death. This careful post-mortem staging signified that the dogs were metaphorically and physically properly fed to accompany the soul on its journey to the afterlife. There are several more pages of this history, but you're going to have to get the book and read it for yourself. All right, now we have Canine Enrichment for the Real World, which is one of my favorite books. It's by Emily Strong and Allie Bender, who are 2 behavior professionals that I truly respect and admire. This book is a wonderful resource if you're trying to understand what your animal companions need, specifically dogs, but how to enrich their lives in multiple ways, not just in the sort of traditional, here's a food toy kind of way, but how do we meet their needs in sort of all realms of welfare. All right, so I'm going to be reading from Chapter 8, Social Interactions.
It's safe to say that the overwhelming majority of dog trainers, behavior consultants, and behaviorists would agree that it's critical to recognize that dogs are dogs. Dogs aren't humans. Dogs aren't cats. Dogs are dogs, and we need to treat them as such, which means that we also need to let them have social interactions that are natural to dogs. That said, in order to do so, we need to know who dogs actually are as a species and what their social structures actually look like. And in order to do that, we need to look at the entire body of data that has been collected on dogs' social structure over the past century or so, rather than relying on outdated belief systems that are based in old, bad science that has been debunked time and time again over the past several decades. So let's talk about who dogs are in the context of their social structure. We can most easily start by discussing what they are most certainly not: a species with a rigid hierarchical social structure in which individuals in the pack fight to achieve and maintain alpha status. That's right, there's no such thing as an alpha dog. The belief in the alpha dog started back in the 1940s when a man named Rudolf Schenkel published a study he had done on wolves in which he concluded that wolves fought for status and formed an established ranking system, 1947. The alpha got priority access to resources, then the beta got next priority, then the gamma, and so forth and so on. This study became the foundation upon which future studies of wolf and dog behavior were founded. The scientific community took this hierarchical social structure for granted, and then went on to apply that same logic to dogs as well. If wolves have a ranking system led by an alpha, dogs must too, right? More like a family than a pack. Okay, bye. She's like, alpha again? This general belief went on for a few decades until a man named David Meach, a wildlife biologist who specializes in wolf behavior, noticed some serious methodological flaws in Schenkel's work. First and foremost, Schenkel didn't actually study wild wolves, but observed captive wolves in a zoo. Remember, this was in the 1940s, 2 full decades before the conservation movement began, and 3 full decades before Hal Markowitz defined and implemented enrichment programs. This means that zoo animals at the time were rarely born in captivity. They were often wild caught, and the only wolves that are practical or easy to catch are the lone wolves, juvenile males who have left their pack and have not yet formed their own. Which brings us to the second problem. Not only were these wolves living in an unnatural environment, but due to the utter lack of enrichment, they had no way to perform their natural behaviors. So Schenkel was observing a bunch of displaced and stressed out juvenile males who were unnaturally crammed together in a concrete wasteland. Sounds a little bit like prison, doesn't it? Imagine that aliens come to Earth and decide to study humans, but instead of observing us all living our lives, they decide to study prison environments. They go back to their home planet and publish a study on that. They wear bright orange jumpsuits. They file the end of their tooth cleaning devices down to sharp points and stab each other with them. Their primary form of currency is these little sticks that give them cancer. Does that accurately describe your behavior? Or your families? Or your friends? Would you call that a good, accurate study of human behavior? I certainly wouldn't. And yet, this was Schenkel's methodology. When Dr. Meach recognized these flaws, he realized how important it was to study wolves in the wild who were subjected to as little human interference as possible. As a result, he and many other venerable scientists have followed suit. What they have collectively found is that wolf packs compromise the alpha male and female, their offspring from multiple litters, and sometimes their own siblings who have yet to go off and start their own families. Wolf packs are families, and the alpha male and female aren't the pack leaders because they fought their way to the top. They're the pack leaders because they're the parents. Meach, 2000. No sane human parent would go into their 6-year-old's room, punching their fist into their palm and say, all right, kiddo, let's take this outside. You or me, who's gonna be the dad? Throw down, bro. Likewise, the wolf parents don't need to throw their muscle around to gain superior status. They're just mom and dad.
Subscribe. I can't talk right now. It's because of the chains. I can't talk because I put chains on my truck and it f***ed me up in the head forever. Okay. Oh, you! I won't be able to reach the bottom one. Why do they do this? Here we go. Funny days. Stop judging me!